Good day, everyone. We are the Group 2, and today we will discuss the arts in the early civilizations. So let us start. What is Stone Age? The Stone Age was a broad prehistoric period during which stone was widely used to make tools with an edge, a point, or a percussion surface. So it began about 2.6 million years ago, wherein the researchers found the earliest evidence of humans na nagagamit sila og stone tools. And it lasted until about 3,300 BC when the Bronze Age began. So the question is, why is it called the Stone Age? It is called the Stone Age because it is characterized by when early humans, sometimes known as the cavemen, kasi nakatira sila sa cave noon, started using stone such as flint for tools and weapons. They also used stones to light fires, and these stone tools are the earliest known human tools. And these tools, ginagamit nila sa mga tao sa sinauna para mag-survive. So, though prehistoric humans would not necessarily possess the complex rational capabilities to tell their story through written records and accounts, some artifacts in the form of cave paintings and sculpture would serve as the storytellers. So these cave paintings, sculptures serve as a form of communication during that age. And these are the examples of tools that were used during that period or age. The Stone Age is divided into three periods: the Paleolithic, or the late years of the Old Stone Age; the Mesolithic, or also known as the Middle Stone Age; and lastly, the Neolithic, or the New Stone Age. In the history of art, prehistoric art is all art produced in the pre-literate, prehistorical cultures beginning somewhere in very late geological history, and generally continuing until that culture either develops writing or other methods of record keeping or makes significant contact with another culture that makes some record of major historical events. So at this point, the ancient art begins for the older literate cultures, and the end date for what is covered by that term thus varies greatly between different parts of the world. So this is where the point where the lifestyle of nomadics came into a permanent settlements. Witness the prehistoric art. They witness how the humans were able to lead a more stable life and eventually come up with permanent shelters and tools for survival. Early humans also turned the creation of painting and sculptures that depict human, animals, and their natural habitats. So in other words, when we say prehistoric art, it refers to the artifacts that was made before there was a written record. Long before the oldest written languages were developed, people had become expert at creating forms that were both practical and also beautiful. It is characterized by a more advanced hunter-gathering, fishing, rudimentary forms of cultivation, and so on. And this era is characterized by farming, domestication of animals, settled communities, and the emergence of important ancient civilizations. An example of this prehistoric art like katong mga cave paintings. And we will know that later by the next reporters. In the Paleolithic period, which is 2.5 million years ago to 10,000 BC, the early humans lived in caves or simple huts and were hunters and gatherers. They used basic stone and bone tools as well as crude stone axes for hunting birds and wild animals. The Paleolithic period or age is known for its ancient cultural stage of human technological development characterized by the creation and use of rudimentary cheap stone tools. The Paleolithic art is concerned itself with either food, such as hunting scenes, animal carvings, or fertility, such as Venus figurines. Its predominant theme was animals. It is considered to be an attempt by Stone Age peoples to gain some sort of control over their environment, whether by magic or through ritual. And the art from this period represents a giant leap in human cognition, or what we call the abstract thinking. And also, during this period, it was kung saan yung mga Homo sapiens pa ang nakikilala natin na mga klase ng tao. Next, Paleolithic art is a product of climate change. Why? So, as the climate gets colder, the part of early human instinct is to look for shelters that would provide them warmth. Caves became protective haven for the early humans, and these caves paved the way for the birth of their first attempts to create art. So this is how the Paleolithic art started because of the climate change. Since pabago-bago ang panahon, so humans in that era or in that period are looking for shelters para hindi sila mabasa ng ulan, for example, or mainitan. Caves became their shelters. And during that time, itong cave na to, dito nagsimula ang paggawa nila ng mga arts. Kasi kaya nga, di ba, may mga evidences na nakikita sa mga cave na mga paintings mula sa mga cavemen. And an example for that is the Hall of Bulls found in a cave in Las Coques, France, 15,000 BCE. So some of early humans already used their own version of spray painting techniques. They used ground pigments blown through reeds or hollowed out bones. They also used foreshortening and contrasting of lights and shadows to create three-dimensional forms and seemingly real representation of animals. Artworks during the Paleolithic period are not just for decorative items but served as first religious rituals. So the Paleolithic people also used the artwork for religious purposes. As part of their beliefs and rituals, some Paleolithic people they used rock paintings of animals to call on an aspect of that animal, like a lion's strength. They also created rock carvings called petroglyphs. And during that time then, ang mga Paleolithic people, they also perform rituals kasi they believe or they worship itong mga gods and goddesses like itong para for the protection during hunting and so on. So it is a reflection of the early beliefs of humans in life and fertility. And one of the works that reflected such beliefs would be the sculpture called the Venus of Willendorf, associated with fertility. So this picture is the Venus of Willendorf in Vienna, Austria, 25,000 to 28,000 BCE. And it was discovered on 1908. So this Venus of Willendorf shows a woman that has an oversized breast, enlarged hips, so dagko sila mga breasts, and they have the round abdomen. And this representation shows the importance of taking care of these body parts for procreation and consequently the survival of species.
So, after Paleolithic period, which has a cold climate, now let's move on to the next period, which came after the Paleolithic era. This period is called the Mesolithic Age, which has a warm climate. It is also known as the Middle Stone Age, to 10,000 BCE to 5,000 BCE. It is a second period in human history, starts at the end of the last ice age. It is based on the increase of technology of microlith, and tools were combined with other tools and refined for hunting. And Mesolithic introduces pre-agricultural habits, including domestication. So in Mesolithic art, the name Mesolithic comes from the two separate words, which is mesos means middle and lithos means stone. So Mesolithic period is often referred to as the Middle Stone Age. So it is a period during which early humans began to control fire and develop languages. The Mesolithic Age is basically the blend of two societies existing almost at the same time according to their immediate environment. So these are the pastoral and horticultural societies. In pastoral societies, people raise and herd sheep, goats, camels, and other domesticated animals and use them as their major source of food and also, depending on the animals, as a means of transportation. While horticultural societies, people use hoes and other simple hand tools to raise crops. So the human of the Mesolithic era enjoyed the warm climate, unlike those in the Paleolithic era who had to deal with the cold climate. So since humans in Mesolithic era did not have to live in caves, this era saw the beginnings of both settled communities and farming. People started living in huts instead of caves, unlike sa Paleolithic na nakatira ang mga tao sa caves. So, the Mesolithic age also saw the invention of the bow and arrow, pottery for food storage, and domestication of a few animals such as goats, sheep, pigs, cattle for their food, or also domestication of dogs which can help them hunting for food. So this means that humans in this period began to learn how to domesticate animals and plants and also hunting as well as fishing. So they are less reliant on large mammals for food. In this period, animals became smaller in size and faster than before. So human had to develop his stone tools called the microliths. Microliths is a very small stones and also develop weapons made of bones and wood in a lighter and more practical form. Mesolithic art began to explore humans in activity rather than a pure appraisal of animals. The rich art of the Paleolithic is replaced by a Mesolithic arts with many changes in style as well as meaning. While Paleolithic art depicts colored drawings and expressive feature of animals, Mesolithic art in contrast is schematic. No realistic figures are present and only the color red is used. So, Mesolithic art refers to all arts and crafts created between the end of the Paleolithic Ice Age. The most interesting Mesolithic age that we know of consists of rock paintings. Cave paintings overwhelmingly depicted animals, while the rock paintings is usually of human groupings. The painted humans typically seen to be engaged in either hunting or rituals whose purposes have been lost to time. So there are two style of rocks art. So the pictographs and the petroglyphs. So pictographs, it is prehistoric symbols drawn or painted on rock walls, while the petroglyphs is prehistoric symbols that is carved or scratched into rock. So a Mesolithic art is a simple art which is no figures and only red use and schematic. So schematic means it is a picture or arts that shows something in a simple way using symbols. So unlike sa Paleolithic art na they use colored drawings. Next is the Mesolithic painting. So these are some of the arts in Mesolithic age. The main theme in painted scenes of Mesolithic rock art is the human figure. When in the same scene are animals, the human runs towards them. Hunting scenes are the most common, but there are also scenes of battle and dancing and possibly agricultural tasks and managing domesticated animals. So, kana ikaduha na picture is a reproduction from one of the many rock shelter caves in eastern Spain, identified by most experts as a battle scenes, although it could also be a hunting one. The next is the comparison of Paleolithic and Mesolithic tools. So humans in Paleolithic era and Mesolithic era use stone as their tools, but Mesolithic era not only use stones but they also use bones as their tools. Paleolithic tools were generally composite devices manufactured with small shaped stones called the microliths and retouched bladelets. In Paleolithic era, humans used tools made of stones that developed greatly in the Mesolithic era. Humans in the Mesolithic era, tools were better because a lot more tools were invented. Mesolithic tools were essentially sharpened bones, woods, or antlers studded with tiny chips or stone, unlike sa Paleolithic tools nga heavy then not sharp og simple lang. They also use microliths, a very small pieces of stones which were a more economic way of handling a valuable resource for them. In Mesolithic, they used stone tools in the day-to-day life and also had the ability to use fire and even build objects such as rafts to travel across water, nets, spears, bow and arrows, and etc. So this is also one of the arts in Mesolithic era. The rock painting of marching warriors that can be found in Castillon, Spain in 7000 to 4000 BC. So it is a rock art of human figure, and this is identified as a battle scenes. So most of what has survived from the Mesolithic era are small statuette size works and cave paintings located in shallow shelter caves in Spain or Algeria. So that's all about the arts of Mesolithic period.
Good morning everyone. I'm Hannah Kayla G. Bulawan, a BSA student. We're gonna continue discussing the Neolithic art. Neolithic art flourished as early humans' lives became more stable. Natuto din ang mga nasa early humans to cultivate the land and domesticate animals. By 4000 BCE, there were several monumental and architectural structures erected. One of them is Stonehenge, located in southern England. The purpose of this fascinating edifice, it remains a mystery up to this day and age. The existence and purpose ng Stonehenge is still mystery. Some see isa itong templo, while others see is kalendaryo, a complicated calendar that observed both the sun and moon's movements. Others ascribe some magical element to it, by associating it with Merlin the magician from the King Arthur's story. Kung ano man ang purpose sa pag-build nila nito, it still remains as one of the architectural wonders the world has ever seen. As the Neolithic period drew to a close, it was evident that different elements of civilization flourished in parts of the world. It is also notable that most early civilizations emerged and flourished in river valleys. The Nile in Egypt, Indus in India, Tigris and Euphrates in Mesopotamia, and the Yulu River in China. And also the Egyptian art. The fertile ribbon starts from the banks of the Nile River, which flows north Alika and ventures into the Mediterranean Sea. It is in this very ribbon where early Egyptians recognized the integral role of the Nile River to their daily lives. It is this indispensability and utility that eventually lead to the belief that Nile is to be worshipped as a god. Naging god yung Nile River. With this came the notion that art was something that can be and associated with religion. The Egyptian civilization can be divided into three periods. The Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. Maya-maya may discuss yan about these three periods. And continue. Looking at the three periods, yung tatlong periods, it can be noticed that for the Egyptians, para sa mga Egyptian, art should be something religious and spiritual. There may have been differences in the techniques used and style emphasizes, no? But there are common denominators among the artworks created during their respective time periods, no?
To continue this report, we will talk about the Old Kingdom. The Old Kingdom is a period of time during the history of ancient Egypt. It lasted from 2575 BC to 2150 BC. Over these 400 years, Egypt had a strong central government and a prosperous economy. The Old Kingdom is most famous as a time when many pyramids were built. It was evident that religion was bound to the afterlife. They created tombs for important people, particularly the pharaohs. Not just for keeping the dead bodies, but also to serve as a shelter for the next journey in the afterlife. They decorated the tombs with everyday objects that would reflect day-to-day activities as if the afterlife is a mere continuation of what transpired on earth. Tombs in a city where people lived were largely made from mud and have long since been destroyed. Some historians say that Old Kingdom continued until the end of the 8th dynasty, when the capital city moved away from Memphis. The Memphis is the capital city during the Old Kingdom. During the Old Kingdom, human figures, man figures, seen in the tombs were represented in such a way that the profile of the head was evident, while the pelvis, legs, and the upper torso were prominent and the eyes are in the frontal view. One of the cosmetics palettes found in Egypt was called the Narmer palette. It was a palette that utilized and applied dark colors around King Narmer's eyes. It was a symbol that commemorates the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. The unification was significant because it marked the beginning of their civilization. The palette of King Narmer. This is the front part of Palette Narmer. Reading from the top to bottom, the upper scene from the back is repeated. The next register shows the record of a decisive battle with Narmer wearing the red crown of Lower Egypt and directing the shoulder marching in front of him. To the right are the neatly arranged, beheaded bodies of his defeated enemies. Again, he is by far the largest figure in the scene. The largest register depicts two of Narmer's servants controlling two lionesses with leashes. The implication is that Narmer controls the servant, who in turn controls the cats, another declaration of authority. Narmer appears in the bottom scene in the guise of a bull. Egyptian gods could also change their shapes and crushes a rebellious town. And this part is the back of Palette Narmer. Narmer wears the white crown of Lower Egypt and is sacrificing the enemy. Two other enemies lie dead in the lowest register. Narmer's divine authority is shown by the two images of Hathor, the cow goddess, benevolently looking down at the scene, showing the status of Narmer as an equal. Narmer's name in early hieroglyphic is between the two images of Hathor. The marks inside the curve of the horn in the image of Hathor and the left are Arabic language markings placed there by museum officials to catalog their inventory. His central placement in this image, his size relative to other figures, his mace, his crown, the servant behind him holding his sandals, Horus, the hawk god, presenting Narmer with a representation of Lower Egypt. Concept of soul. The ancient Egyptians believed that everyone has a soul. They thought that the soul had two parts and called the soul by two names, the Ba and the Ka. The Ba returned during the day to live with the family, and the Ka flew off to live in the afterlife. Pyramids of Giza. The Old Kingdom period is most famous for building pyramids. This includes the first pyramid, the Pyramid of Djoser, and the largest pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Giza. Is one of the architectural wonders that was constructed during the Old Kingdom.
So hi, good morning everyone. My name is Anruja Tikanoy and I'll be talking about what the Middle Kingdom is during this era and the New Kingdom as well. So during the Middle Kingdom, there are internal struggle between these two influential sides, where the art has taken back place. Way back before, the key features of the Middle Kingdom is a shift in a political hierarchy. So, na mga powerful groups of landlords na nag-threat sa authority and ang rules of Pharaoh. So, Pharaoh means they are the Egyptian rulers, were both of the heads of state and the religious leaders of their people. And also, in order for the art to be re-emerge and flourish, Egypt need to have a more stable situation. So this happened. This tension happened during the king of Mentuhotep. Yeah, Mentuhotep, when Egypt eventually got back on track. So art during the Middle Kingdom has a references as well from the Old Kingdom. However, there were some experimentations in terms of style that transpired during this period. So, nag-revise nagakuha sila idea from the Old Kingdom na marag revise nila na sa katong during the time of sa Middle Kingdom. So, there were portrait sculptures and fresco paintings that were freely drawn are emerged from this period. So, to solve the problem of thieves and the typical using of force in the middle of war, the Egyptian made the rock cut tombs by carving out a living rock. So, ga-carve sila og living rock ani nga era. So, the inside of the tombs were still filled with chambers, and the hallways were lavishly decorated to celebrate the life of deceased. So Egypt eventually into the hands of Hyksos this time. The Asiatic tribe also introduced Bronze Age weapons and horses to the Egyptians. So when the foreign invaders were overthrown, the Egyptians formed a new kingdom. So during the Middle Kingdom, it was tough kay kanang samok kayo ang Egypt ani na time. Kanang basta dagan kay mga invaders. So after all, kanang nakaya na nila mag-stand sila sarili. So and also the foreign invaders kanang wala na overthrown na, the Egyptians formed a new kingdom where the time of expansionism takes place through territorial acquaintance. So there are expansion came in and increased in wealth, leading not only to be economic but also in political stability. So, muna siya ang further na hitabo sa Middle Kingdom. My previous topic, it was the Middle Kingdom, where we have discovered na kato siya nga era sa Middle Kingdom is grabe kasamok, daghan kaayog mga invaders that time nga kanang basta samok siya, daghan kay nag-aapil-apil. So later on, before nag-end ang Middle Kingdom, they found a strategy para mabalik sila ang Egypt. So with their strength, with their unity that time, unity sa government katong Middle Kingdom, they were able to stand for themselves, stand and fight for their country on that time. So after katong nahinahinay na og recover ang Egypt, so mo na to siyang time nga ginatawag nila New Kingdom. So in the New Kingdom, it was expansionism through territorial acquisition. So they were able to they decided to create to expansion their territory. So also the art of New Kingdom had reference, of course, from the both preceding kingdoms, which is the Old and the New Kingdoms. So monuments and sculptures were still linked with death and reverence for the deceased. So on the previous kingdoms, guys, those tombs were used for para sa mga patay lang, worshiping the dead. But on the New Kingdom, they started having mortuary temples na. So these temples were which were carved out of living rocks serve not only on a sanctuary for dead but also a place of worship for the living. So it was kanang nanapod sila discovery during ani nga era sa New Kingdom, which on the preceding kingdoms ang kaning tombs lang is ginagamit nila kanang worship for the dead. Pero karon on the New Kingdom is nagbuhat sila dili siya discovery kanang another invention ba tawagan na gibuhat nila through a worship for the living. It's a place of worship for the living. So during this period as well, Egypt has established itself a more advanced and powerful civilization. So they have newly found their strength and power and ego para ma-consistent ang ilahang paglambuan nga time. So of course kay na naman sila nagahinahinay sila establish silahang civilization, advance gina-maintain na nila, and it can also be seen sa ilahang mga art sculptures which were built on massive and monumental scales. So naturally dakong improvement in regard sa ilahang mga sculptures before. So after the New Kingdom, Egypt witnessed the Amarna Revolution led by King Akhenaton and Queen Nefertari. He moved the capital to Tel El Marna, thus the name Amarna. So during this reign, King Amenhotep wanted to revolutionize the arts and religion. So of course, he also changed his name, which signifies the shift of religion. So giilis niya to Akhenaton, which came from Aton, who is the son of God at that time. So during this period, the only god who revered was Aton, kung asa gikuha ang iyang name. So Egypt became monotheistic, and Akhenaton ordered all to tear down all monuments of other gods. Aside atong kay Aton, gipa tear down, gipa dispose niya tong mga other gods that time. So he fervently ordered the creation and erection of new monuments in reverence to Aton. So most sculptures during this period had curving lines and full-bodied forms. So nag-revolutionize food ang art this time. On the New Kingdom times, because nanay mga curving lines, nanay mga patterns, na ay mga body forms sa ilahang art is na present na. So also gihatagan nila there's an emphasis to lifelike features like face, jaw, eyes, and mura na jud siya kanang tinood na jud, like kato mga monuments nila dati. So most artists created artworks that are natural and seemingly real, highlighting the features of their subjects. So they are much more particular on giving life sa ilahang art na ginabuhat, as much as they na sila mabuhat to make it more realistic, na dili lang kanang na mga kind of art nga giproduce sa mga preceding eras before. So they tried to make it more realistic compared sa other artworks nila before. And naturalism was not only used to depict the pharaoh but also used for members of the royal family. So the bust of Queen Nefertari has a long and sensuous neck this figure was enhanced by applying paint to the limestone. So that time on the New Kingdom, they have created a monument of Queen Nefertari. So gi-emphasize nila dinhi ang long niya nga neck, which is kung unsa lang nakita sa ilahang object, unsa nga mga features na nakita sa isa ka object is mo na ilahang ginabuild, which is present po silang art. So that's how the New Kingdom was been, kanang reimbursed. So that's it.
Next is the After New Kingdom. Egypt witnessed the Amarna Revolution led by King Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti. During his reign, King Amenhotep wanted to revolutionize the arts and religion. King Amenhotep changed his name to Akhenaten, which came from Aten, who is the sun god. During this period, the only god to be revered was Aten. Egypt became monotheistic and he ordered to tear down all monuments of other gods. Most sculpture during this period had curving lines and full-bodied form. Next is Queen Nefertiti. Queen Nefertiti was a queen of Egypt and a wife of King Akhenaton. Her husband went great lengths to display her as one equal. In several reliefs, she is shown wearing the crown of Pharaoh or smiting her enemies on battle. But despite this great power, Queen Nefertiti disappears from all depiction after 12 years, and her tomb in the Valley of the King has never been found. An elegant portrait bust of Queen Nefertiti is now in Berlin. It's perhaps one of the most well-known ancient sculptures. As you can see in this image, this is the bust of Queen Nefertiti. She has a long and sensuous neck. The figure was enhanced by applying the paint to the limestone. Next is King Tutankhamen. He ruled Egypt as pharaoh for 10 years until his death at the age of 18. Around 1324 BC, he was barely known to the modern world until 1922. Probably, King Tutankhamen is one of the greatest discoveries from the Egyptian civilization, and it is because of his tomb. When Howard Carter discovered the tomb of King Tutankhamen in 1922, the face is covered with gold mask. As you can see in this picture, by the time archaeologists Howard discovered King Tutankhamen's tomb in 1922, he believed that all the royal tombs in the Valley of the King across the river from ancient Thebes had already been cleared.
So, to wrap it all, the conclusion, during the prehistoric period, the early humans had transitioned from a nomadic lifestyle to that of a more permanent one, which led to early civilizations. Some of the works discovered from this period would give modern society a glimpse of what was life like during that period. One of the early civilizations where art flourished was the Egyptian civilization. And throughout the three kingdoms, all the way to the Amarna Revolution, art has been directly used particularly in religious and spiritual activities. Through these unearthed and discovered artworks, the modern world could have a better understanding of the past and how it can affect the present. And that would be all. Thank you for listening.